What is going on, YouTube? I wanted to come back. I know it's been a long time since I've done a YouTube video in general, but wanted to kind of jump back into the college football world of conversation before things start really heating up and all the hype starts building around the 2018 season. This right now with National Signing Day having just passed and spring games and the NFL draft and all that stuff just right around the corner here, I think it's a good time to jump back into it. Like I said, I know it's been a while. It's probably been at least a year since I posted a video. I had a lot of good people in the community that I know that I was kind of more involved with around the college football discussion. I just kind of left you guys hanging out there. I know that I'm driving right now, and you guys probably catch a few people that are driving, but I do have my phone mounted, and I thought while I am just kind of cruising here, be a good time to maybe give you guys a little bit of a discussion, my thoughts around the upcoming college football season, at least from what I know so far. So, like I said, National Signing Day has just passed, and the college football playoff is always a hot discussion. No matter what, obviously it's the ultimate goal for every program to reach that. For programs like Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, those are the sorts. Winning the actual national championship is the main goal at hand, but with having so much time before the next college football playoff comes around, it's really a good time to dive in from a high level overview perspective and see what programs are the favorites right now. If you look at any way too early top 25 right now, you're generally going to see Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, OU around the top 5. Your OU's kind of hard to figure out right now. Kyler Murray's got a lot of hype around him. I think it's a safe pick if you're going to find a fresh starting quarterback next year that could break out, but that's something that's been talked about a lot. But OU with all those other teams like West Virginia, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas building up some momentum, Kansas State. In the Big 12, they can challenge kind of a hard thing to say that they have a clear path toward the college football playoff for the second year in a row. But let me go ahead and jump right on into it. So I wanted to give my ideas for the teams that I think will end up finishing just outside the college football playoff. I remember the way I used to structure this was, my 4 teams out, 4 teams in. And the first one that I wanted to mention, and I think that they'll make a good run at it next year, is the Florida State Seminoles. They bring in a new head coach in Willie Taggart, who found some success at Oregon last year, especially while Justin Herbert was healthy. Really turned it around after that last little spill of Mark Helfrich that led Oregon to, a 4-win season. Just a couple years after Oregon had actually made it to the college football playoff national championship game. I think that Taggart can bring a very unique culture to the table with Florida State, get that program back on track after losing DeAndre Francois in the opening game to Alabama. I think having Francois back in the mix, having a Cam Akers that really showed out strong in the second half of the season, while building kind of a new defense, a solid recruiting class for Florida State. Underrated, I guess, would be a good mark for them with the 2018 class. But I think they're a team that's just on the outside looking in. I think teams like Virginia Tech, obviously Clemson, looking at Miami as ACC favorites entering 2018. Now, I think another team to watch that's going to be on the outside looking in is Ohio State. Ohio State is always in the mix since the college football playoff came about. Last year, just as I guess some people would consider snubbed in the way of Alabama, but much like Ohio State did in 2014, in 2015, because the very beginning of 2015, they were able to. Alabama was able to just sneak into the playoff, but ultimately end up winning it. Ohio State, I think, has. I think bringing in Dwayne Haskins. This is a program that it seems like whenever they do bring in a new quarterback or have a new starting quarterback, they're able to get their way into the college football playoff. But it's hard to say. There's a lot of unknowns with bringing in a new quarterback after having JT Barrett for so long, and now that he's gone, that's a big void to fill. And I think that's ultimately going to lead Ohio State maybe to drop a game or two that will cost them a spot in the playoff. Second to last team that I think will be on the outside looking in out of the Pac-12 is Washington. I think Washington is the team that I think the Pac-12 is ultimately the conference that ends up getting left out of the playoff once again, and I think Washington has the talent to win the Pac-12 next year. I think with the drop-off you're going to see from USC after losing Sam Darnold, Stanford will definitely be a contender. That's a team to watch. I think will ultimately end up falling between Stanford and Washington in the Pac-12 North, and I think the Pac-12 North will go back to reigning supreme as Pac-12 champions again. But I think Washington ends up, again, losing a game or two during the regular season, much like Ohio State, just not fully able to pull through under the Washington. Solid again in 2017, ultimately end up losing the Fiesta Bowl to Penn State. Some disappointing losses to Stanford and Arizona State as well in 2017. The last team I think that's on the outside looking in for the college football playoff is coming from the SEC, and I think that team is going to be Georgia. I think Georgia's found something good with Kirby Smart. Mark Richt took Georgia to at least a 10 or 11 win team most seasons, but obviously Kirby Smart showing with this last recruiting class and with the way he was able to just dominate a lot of other SEC programs in 2017, that Georgia's here to stay and that they can actually make it on the big time now. SEC champions, the way they responded after that massive loss to Auburn that was very disappointing when it seemed like they were finally getting to the top of the college football world, and then I think it's important that they finished off on the recruiting trail for 2018 the way they did. I think that Alabama is still going to reign supreme in the SEC in 2018. I guess that kind of gives away one of my way too early picks for the college football playoff, but it's defending national champions just knocked off Georgia already. I think that they'll have the edge again in 2018. Now move on to the four teams that I think will actually get in, and then I want to start at number 4, and I guess this one would be the bold pick of the mix, but my number 4 pick is going to be out of the Big Ten. I'm going to actually go with Wisconsin. Wisconsin was just a few points away, one drive away from getting into the college football playoff in 2017. They've got a pretty good heap of returning talent in 2018. Obviously, namely Jonathan Taylor, one of the Heisman favorites for 2018. A lot depends on whether Alex Hornibrook can ultimately find a consistent rhythm in 2018. And, he showed a pretty significant improvement from 2016 to 2017. I think that has to be highlighted. And I think if he can do much of the same from 2017 to 2018, then he'll be able to really help that Wisconsin offense make some headway into the Big Ten in 2018. That's a good Big Ten conference, though, in 2018. Very crowded. Michigan should be better, a lot better than they were with a lot of quarterback trouble and, only 5 returning starters in 2017. Most of their starters will be coming back in 2018. And, whether it be, I'm not quite sure if Shea Patterson got, I haven't paid attention to the most recent of the Shea Patterson news, whether he'll be eligible in 2018 or not. If not, then Brandon Peters did show a lot of promise last year as well, and could be the option for Michigan in 2018. But Wisconsin, I think, can finally can get over the hump. Wisconsin, Georgia, if you ever pick one of those teams, you got to be mindful of the history of those teams. It's those teams that just can't seem to quite make it over the hump ever. But I think Wisconsin's got it in place. To make that final push, utilize the talent that they have at hand, one of the best running backs in the nation in Jonathan Taylor, and finally get that push into the college football playoff at the 4 seed. In my 3 seed, I'm going to go out of the Big 12. I'm actually going to pick OU as my 3 seed. I think that they can do the same that they did in 2017 2017. Might not be the most bold prediction in the world, but I think OU can get through their Big 12 slate with only one loss and be able to make that push into the college football playoff. You know, when Baker Mayfield came in after transferring over from Texas Tech, a lot of question marks surrounding the offense, but if you ever watched Mayfield at Texas Tech, you could definitely see the talent there. Kyler Murray, different quarterbacks, both smaller quarterbacks, fiery personalities, a lot of talent at hand. Kyler Murray I believe he was #1 dual threat quarterback in the nation coming out of Allen High School a couple of years ago when he originally committed to Texas A&M. OU, I think that the Big 12 I think OU has a good path in the Big 12 in 2018. It'll be a tough conference. I don't think as tough. Oklahoma State and TCU were the two other top teams in the Big 12 last year, and both of them lose their quarterback and then some surrounding talent besides that. West Virginia is going to be a tough competitor. Kansas State and Texas, I guess, are going to be tough as well. Iowa State, another team to pay attention to with the way Matt Campbell was able to help that program out and help them move along in 2017. Moving on to the #2 seed, and again, this is where I feel like it's going to get really predictable and very boring. OU and Wisconsin maybe a little bit more on the bold side, but I'm going to go with Alabama to actually come in at the 1 seed, and then Clemson to come in at the 2 seed. I know that Clemson was the 1 seed in 2018. They were in 2017 for the 2018 when the playoff was actually played out, but Clemson has a bevy of returning talent. They do get a little bit back along the defensive line. Kelly Bryant comes back. Even if they don't go with Kelly Bryant, I think that Hunter Johnson, Trevor Lawrence, they've got a couple 5-star quarterbacks that were some of the most talented recruits in the country when they signed with Clemson. And obviously Dabo for the last 3 years has gotten Clemson into the college football playoff. Jimbo Fisher's last push with Jameis Winston was the last time that Clemson was not in the college football playoff, when Florida State was able to oust them that year in 2014. But I think Clemson has established a model of success right now that's only matched by Alabama right now. I think they've even outdone Ohio State a little bit in the last couple years to position themselves as the second best program in the nation since 2015. Again, Kelly Bryant was able to lead that team to at least get to the college football playoff, win another ACC title. The ACC is going to be tough in 2018. There's no doubt about that. Miami is kind of establishing themselves as contenders for a few years to come. I think that Clemson's going to have a tough time getting through that ACC stretch. Maybe one loss along the way, but I think ultimately they have enough along both sides of the ball to get back into the playoff. And then my last pick, I've given this away a couple times already, but give a little bit more detailed explanation now. It is Alabama. I think the question marks for Alabama entering 2018 are mostly a rich man's problem when you look namely at the quarterback battle that they'll have on their hands. In my mind, I'm thinking that Jalen Hurts is going to end up being the opening week starter, but obviously Tagovailoa, tongue twister, will end up getting a ton of reps as well, especially in some of the earlier weeks. Alabama, again, obviously a model of success, getting their second college football playoff national championship. They do return most, from what I know, they return most of their team back in 2018. A few notable losses that they will have to deal with. I don't remember if Calvin Ridley and Bo Scarborough are entering the draft or not. Again, that's something I need to do a little bit more research on. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think, namely along the defensive side of the ball, is an enormous loss for that Alabama defense. And Alabama just always reloads, so I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. Even with some losses that they'll have on both sides of the ball, I think Alabama is still going to reign supreme in the SEC. And ultimately, after being a #4 seed in the playoff and not even getting to the SEC title game, I think will be enough motivation for a Saban coach team to make it back into just not just contention, but into that #1 overall ranking for pretty much the entire season in 2018. They do top most people's way too early top 25 rankings. But anyway, like I said, I'm gonna try to come back with a few more videos more on the regular for the 2018 college football season, the NBA, the NHL. Mainly the Big Six sports in my mind, especially with college basketball rounding out here pretty soon as well. Hockey, or the NHL, NBA, NFL draft coming around. It's a good time for sports talk in general. A lot of stuff to discuss. But anyway, like I said, guys, I look forward to being back now, making videos on a little bit more consistent basis, hopefully with a little bit more focus than just cruising on the highway with my phone mounted on the dash. So, like I said, it's something I'm looking at getting back at a little bit more regularly, and I really look forward to more hype around the 2018 college football season as the off season really starts to kick into gear after the spring games come around. But enough off season events right now to still keep everyone interested in the spring games coming around soon. So still a lot of cool things to witness before the off season kind of hits that dry period. But anyway, let me know what you guys think, what your opinions are, what your playoff predictions are going to be. I know everyone's always got an opinion on the college football playoff. And maybe a little bit more bold predictions. That's something that I'll definitely come through with. But your picks that would be a little bit more similar to maybe what Auburn might have done or something like that. Can't really think of anything right now, but maybe more Georgia-esque with how they were able to make the college football playoff run through and almost win a national title when they were not expected to do anything of the sorts. So anyway, like I said, good to be back, guys. Good to be able to talk a little bit more about college football. But yeah, that is pretty much it. So yeah.